Misgivings by Ishelle. Before I was in grade school, I learned to count by going to the store with my mother. It's all give and take, she'd say. If it cost $1.79 and I give you $2, then you give me back 2 dimes and a penny, see? Her numbers were the first thing to go. The store by my house is not a large store, but it'll do. It carries the essential toiletries, home goods, canned foods, electronics. There is a section behind glass doors housing a few potted plants, bags of fertilizer, and garden hoses. It is easy to forget this section entirely. It's a nice store with a weekly ad, and lately Christmas decals hung from the ceiling. My house wasn't always my house, but the store was always the store. I moved into the house 2 months ago. I'm still finding bits of packing peanuts smushed into the shag carpets. It is a 1-bedroom with an office. It comes with a dishwasher I never use, except as a drying rack. 3 months ago, my mother moved into the nursing home. The home, too, is decorated for Christmas, except no poinsettias because of the children who visit and the German shepherd who lives there and visits with the residents. Except for my mother, who closes her door, says she's allergic. She isn't. I don't know whether she believes she is, has grown afraid of dogs, or simply can't be bothered. At the store, there are 2 lists in my head, things to buy and things I no longer need to buy. Items from the second list keep finding their way to my cart, as if by my mother's hand. I look around for an employee before setting them on the shelf, beside a row of kidney beans. Ointments for sins healed or forever imaginary ailments. You don't need this, I would tell her. The wound is healed, Mom. But what about this, she'd say, fingering the callous skin, trying to rub it away for good or else aggravate it into renewed injury. In the checkout line, I briefly thumbed through the type of magazine that I judge other women for buying. Hours later, the smell of perfume on my fingertips remains. There is a message on the answering machine from a woman named Hope, and I think, how appropriate. The nurse who checked my mother in wore a name tag that read, Bunny. As she walked us through the check-in procedure again, we'd been through it all before, all I could think was, is that your born-again name? And did you get together with Hope and Misty and work out your stage names like at a strip club? Is that printed on your license? Then my mother, who could hardly read anymore, called her Bambi. I was mortified. When we first visited the home, I asked her, what do you think, Mom? I have my misgivings, she said. On my next trip to the store, I purchased the magazine. Inside is the type of quiz that I judge other women for taking. The results bubbled outward into glossy clusters of suggestions for self-improvement, things like, experiment with style by changing your hair color, and revitalize your home with a vibrant new houseplant. On the way home from the salon, I pick up a rabbit-foot fern, not believing that luck will call, but willing to get the door if it should. I am to keep it out of direct sunlight, which I feel is a reasonable enough expectation. At the home, there are fresh-cut flowers for every centerpiece and along the windowsills, a smell in the air of young and sweet and dying things. The day of my father's service, this was the smell they pumped through the heating ducts of the mortuary. We loaded all of the bouquets into the back of my car and set them about my mother's house. The petals dried and contorted into dead spider legs, and my mother hauled them out to the garbage bin the night before trash was collected. The vases too, the cards she saved. Online, I read that ferns require moist air, so at the store I pick out a neon pink spray bottle located between travel-sized toothpaste and plastic cases for bars of soap. This is not an aisle that I browse. This is not the color I choose. What Hope had called to tell me was that there had been an altercation between my mother and another resident, who has the same model of walker as my mother. Never having thought of there being multiple models, perhaps tennis balled or non-tennis balled, I could only guess where this was going. It appears that your mother accused another resident of having stolen her walker and meant to take it back. Quite the squabble ensued. I asked what she meant by quite the squabble, and she said, "Oh, I didn't mean to worry you. It's all been sorted out now." Evidently, someone had come up with the idea of tying a different colored ribbon to each of their walkers. I ventured the possibility that one or the other might forget their assigned colors. "Well, I suppose we'll cross that bridge when we come to it," Hope told me, with all the self-assurance of someone whose own mother is either in good health or dead already. The second time we toured the home, my mother became very concerned with the finances. "Well, how will we afford it?" "I don't have the money," she fretted. I went over Dad's life insurance policy with her again, took out her checkbook, which in hindsight only made things more confusing for her. We never could locate the receipts for her most recent entries. When I asked about her monthly payments made out to ESP, she told me it stood for error someplace. "What time is it?" she asked me, though I could see my father's watch poking out of her shirt sleeve. I glanced at the clock on the oven and answered, "What time is it now?" Having been afraid of overwatering the fern, I next grow afraid of drying it out. At the store, I pick up a humidifier. I find it beside the children's Robitussin. The other mothers, who had gotten the hang of things by number 2, helped me to select a model, sending me off with well wishes for my fern, which they do not understand is a fern, and which we would laugh about together, my fern and I, when I arrived home, were not a fern. At the home, my mother is carefully watched. Last week, some church women visited, promising to come back soon, and my mother stole a sugar-free cherry pie from the kitchen, hiding it in her room so that she'd have something to offer them when they returned. She sat up all night waiting. "Well, they said they'd be back." "You should do what you say you're going to do," my mother tells me. "That's how I was raised, and that's how I raised you." "I can replace the pie," I say over the phone. "We have rules here," Bunny says. "I do not believe you understand how serious this is." "Well, no, Bunny," I say, "I don't believe that I do." "Well, just suppose that the pie hadn't have been sugar-free, and your mother, being a diabetic, had eaten it all and sent her insulin levels through the roof. We might have had a lawsuit on our hands." I can feel my hair poking up above my neck and at the crown from sitting so close to the humidifier. If my father were here, he might smooth down the curls. If my mother were here, she might call me ragtag as she did when I was a girl. I resisted her attempts to brush out the knots. If my father were here, he wouldn't be dead. If my mother were here, I've forgotten what the difference would be. At the home, the women do come back and singing carols. My mother tells me, "Some women visited from Jesus Christ of the Nazareth," except she doesn't say it like, "Finally they have returned," or "They came and I had no offerings to bear," or even, "And to think of what I went through to get them that pie. Ungrateful, not how I raised you." Instead, she says it just like garbage day had already come and gone, and the entire experience carried away. She rubs her naked wrists, and I ask about the watch. She points it out on the nightstand, tells me it pinched. Didn't fit anyhow. Your father must have picked it out. Down the hallway, Misty catches me at the elbow, tells me not to worry about the pie. I think it's sweet what she did. 'Tis the season for giving after all. The underside of the fern's leaves have started to turn brown. I don't know how many garbage days it has left. I think of what my mother would say then or now, as I reach to touch, wanting to believe that my fingertips against its leaves will make the difference, that my willing a reversal will achieve it somehow. But I have my misgivings.